Hello everyone, welcome to round 2 of a PauperLeague with the blue-white familiars deck. Here we are on the draw. We're gonna go ahead and keep this nice 7. And we seem to be playing against Elves, which is definitely a lot more challenging matchup than the mono black we faced last round. They are playing out Elvish Vanguard, Birchlaw Ranger, and showing us their hand with Land Grant. So here we know of Forest Well-Wisher and Elvish Visionary. Not too bad. We're getting our island just in case we drew Godfar's Faithful, because then we would fetch 4 planes and play the Faithful. Since we don't have that one, we're still gonna fetch 4 planes, but we are going to play a bounce land instead to get it out of the way. This of course leads to us having to discard a card due to hand size, which is a little unfortunate, but we got deep analysis that we're probably not casting anytime soon, and we can still flash it back later in the game, should the occasion arise. Here opponent is playing the cards we know of already, and they add a Curion Ranger. Swinging for 6 damage, which is a respectable clock. We definitely need to start deploying some of our creatures. Therefore we will start off with Seagate Oracle to have a blocker out, getting a snap off of it, which is really nice. More Vanguards. Will block the Birchlaw Rangers. I figured that is the best out of his 1 toughness creatures, as that one can cast Distant Melody. We currently do not care about the Well-Wisher or Quirion untapping Well-Wisher, and if the opponent draws a Timberwatch Elf, we are dead to its activated ability anyway, even without the Quirion. In fact, we are dead to almost anything here, but we can do some tricks with Snap. So here I'm gonna snap his biggest Vanguard, netting me 2 mana off of the bounce lands. I can play another Oracle, and excellent, hold up another Snap. This is a true lifesaver, otherwise we couldn't have managed next turn. So as we know, opponent is replaying the Vanguard. It's got 1 more coming. And swinging in for lethal damage, except we do have the snap lined up. So here we are gonna block his 2 other most relevant of the small Elves. Snap the Vanguard, untapping both bounce lands. And at the end of their turn, we will definitely flicker on both our Seagates to give us more action. Gotta take Seagate off of this one and a Fam off of the other. So here we can play out the Fam, which speeds up everything we want to do. And we'll deploy the Seagate as well, getting a Muldrifter off of it. Nothing else we can do this turn, but we're not dead to the board, at least. Even though we have to sacrifice 2 Seagate Oracles. Alright, and now you might think that we're in a pretty dire spot, but in fact we got exactly enough to do one of the infinite combos I described earlier in the pregame. So we're gonna play out the plains, play a mnemonic wall for 4 mana, getting back a snap. We'll snap on one of the vanguards, untapping the bounce lands. Play the other wall, going down to 1 mana exactly, getting back the snap again, snapping another vanguard. And from now on we got the combo to infinitely bounce their creatures, since we can Ghostly Flicker for 2 mana on the walls, getting back a flicker and a snap, allowing us to recast snap as many times as we like to, also netting a white or black mana each loop. Can I go ahead and play the Serrated Arrows off of the spare mana and pass the turn, pinging the last vanguard? I realized that I should have probably snapped the vanguard instead and pinged the visionary, since one of the few ways we could lose to at this point is Viridian Longbow. So giving them untapped creatures probably isn't the wisest, but we are able to dodge this one this turn. He's just replaying more guys, which we can bounce. And at this point the game seems fairly locked up. Here we're gonna do some Muldrift tricks, draw some cards, and deploy more creatures, as we're probably likely to beat the opponent down. Or we could find our infinite mill combo, whichever comes first. We're gonna keep snapping their guys. The biggest downside to this is that this takes off time from our clock, so we would definitely like to finish the game, close it out as soon as possible, so we're going for the fastest route to victory. You can see that we already have the Sage Row in hand, but instead I'm gonna just keep deploying more beaters and win the game that way, as winning with Sage Row is more time intensive. Again, flickering on arrows and wall, re-triggering the arrows, allowing me to kill the vanguard before it gets any +1/+1 counters. And that should do it. Here we are for game 2 against Elves. We sided in the 3 extra copies of Stonehorn Dignitary, and we cut 1 Brainstorm, 1 of the Deep Analyses, and the single main deck Serrated Arrows, which in my experience isn't reliable enough to deal with their swarm of creatures. We ideally want to log them out of combat steps instead of having to deal with each of their creatures individually. We're on the draw and opponents got the best start of a forest into mana elf, while we only have an Ash Barrens, which is fine as we can bounce it and fetch for a basic with it next turn, but still I'm wondering whether it's gonna be fast enough, as opponent seems to be deploying quite a lot of stuff and is gonna have a ton of mana next turn from the Titania plus Kyrian Ranger. So doing the trick as described earlier and passing. This way we do have to discard a card, but it's always best to get the bounce land out of the bay as soon as possible, as later it can allow for some snap combos and so on. And here opponent looks like he's going crazy with Lysolana into Visionary, into another Lysolana it seems. I'm wondering whether I'm just dead next turn. But nope, it looks like the opponents only got around 16 power on the board. So we may get another turn. Let's see if it's enough. I'm gonna brainstorm here, thinking the Mire and Analysis aren't quite what we need at the moment. Play the tapped land so that I have untapped island for next turn, where I plan to play out Dignitary. Opponent's putting me down to 3 life. But we got the Stonehorn at the ready. Question is though, are we going to be able to assemble the wall Stonehorn Flicker combo? Because problem is, in order to do that we would need 8 mana, which we are currently a little far away from. So until we can deploy enough lands to do that, we are going to have to find more stuff to get us there. Opponent's getting some extra cards off of Lead the Stampede and playing out a Timberwatch, so should we give them a combat step, we're surely dead. But it looks like we are fortunate enough to miss a snap. The sequencing here is pretty important. What I figure best is to use the snap now and leave up Flicker for next turn, because next turn we are gonna have 6 mana, so that we can Seagate, Flicker the Seagate and the Stonehorn and get an extra card that way. Replaying the Stonehorn and nothing we can do this turn. Muldrifter's even better, much better than playing out the Seagate, as we can save it in response to its evoke trigger as well as re-trigger the Stonehorn. Okay, and in our turn we drew a Preordain into a Snap, which again is super fortunate because we did not have enough mana quite yet to Mnemonic Wall plus Flicker. Replaying the Stonehorn, and here I actually punted because I should have played the Chancery instead of playing Evolving Wilds. I thought I should thin my library here to give myself a better chance to get a relevant draw, but had I played the Chancery, I would untap with 7 mana next turn and have the islands to play as my 8 mana for the Mnemonic Wall combo. This way I still need to draw something relevant next turn. But we have a lot of things we could hit, so I'm not that worried. We might as well start swinging in. And playing a morph, which is a very secret Birchlaw Ranger. And here we were lucky enough to mice a plains, and this allows us for the flicker combo on Stonehorn and Nemaic Wall. So at this point, the only thing we are kind of worried about is the opponent drawing Viridian Longbow and or Massive Raid, which are basically the only two spells relevant in their deck at this point, as they probably don't have any way to disrupt our Wall plus Dignitary Flicker combo. So we should still try to find our combo as soon as possible, or at least deploy enough Muldrifters to provide a fast enough beatdown plan. Getting a backup flicker, might as well, and trying to hit some familiars, but we're kind of unlucky with that, as none of them were in our first half of the library. Again, I'm starting with the flicker combo just to be safe. You know, this deck is pretty complex and you might get caught up in all the Muldrifter flicker wall loops that you might forget to actually do the most important thing and flicker these Stonehorn ones. I'm playing out the Sage Row because why not? Might as well set up my mill plan as soon as I hit the familiars. There's one of them. Doing some more Muldrifter plus Wall tricks. I actually realized later that at this point we already had the win even without the second familiar. What we could do is play out the second wall and start snapping their creatures and flickering the walls as we did in game 1, except this time we already have the Sage Row out, so each flicker on the wall is 2 cards milled for them. But I somehow missed that, thus giving the opponent an extra draw step, which luckily didn't end up hurting us as he drew neither of his 2 relevant spells. Okay, end of turn, I'm gonna flicker Muldrifter again, and this time hitting the familiar, so this should do it, going for the combo right now. I definitely don't want to give the opponent any extra turns. I'm even trying to hit the deep analysis, which is a way of killing the opponent during my turn without passing to them, which I guess in this matchup is kind of irrelevant, but in others it might be good, depriving the opponent of any chance to somehow turn the game. But opponent has literally no out, so here they concede. Was pretty tough. Both games came down to me going to 1 or 3 life, and then having to get a little lucky with the draws. But to be fair, our opponent also had a pretty nut draw both times, so the luck wasn't purely on my side. But anyway, I'll be hoping to see you in round 3.